So welcome to Sitecore Onboarding. To give you a little bit of insight perhaps into the history of Sitecore, I'm delighted to be joined by Bjarne Hansen, who's our current Sitecore board member, but of course founding partner for Sitecore here in the US. But Bjarne, perhaps for those that don't know who you are, perhaps you just take a moment to introduce yourself, but welcome to GK24.
Great, thanks so much. Thanks for inviting me. It's a wonderful time to be at Sitecore, and it always has been. As you can probably tell from my accent, I am Danish of origin. Grew up in a little small town in Denmark, about an hour north of Copenhagen. My dad was a blacksmith, and my mom cleaned offices. And I dropped out of school, unfortunately, but fortunately also because I got into an apprenticeship program really early on. I was 16. And went through that, which was in the lumber business, to do a little bit of office work and do a little bit of inventory control, a little bit of bookkeeping, sitting at the front desk. So you got various aspects of the business at a young age. Finished that, got drafted into the military, where I was in the Royal Danish Guard, as a Queen's bodyguard, as they call it in Denmark. After serving the military, I came here to the US. And continued my training in the lumber business, but that was as a logger in Oregon, sitting chokers, falling trees, working in the sawmill. Got into sales, and I feel like I'm still in sales, by the way. I think we're all in sales all the time.
Always, yeah.
And I worked in lumber sales for about 8 years, and it was a fantastic experience. Learning how to sell in the US, it was quite a bit different from Denmark. It was much more aggressive, and I really liked that part of it. And then after the lumber business, I had a short stint with a touchscreen technology business that a friend of mine had gotten involved with. It was also a good learning experience. It was my first business that I owned with a friend, and we didn't make it after about a year or so. So savings account was gone, and went off to see my girlfriend, now wife, in Japan. She had moved there.
In Japan?
Yeah, she had moved there to teach English. So I went there to visit her, and then I was going to come back and go to work. What ended up happening was one afternoon she said, "Why don't you see if you can get a job here?" So I drove around town. There was 3 English conversation places, and that afternoon I had 3 jobs. I said, maybe I'll stay here. That turned into a business of actually doing exchange programs between Japan and the United States of high school students. And it's a quite successful business. We had it for 13 years. We ended up selling it to the employees, who actually one of the employees still owns and runs the business today. And my wife and I, this is like 2000, took off sailing for 3 years. Our daughter shows up 6 days old on the boat with us.
Wow.
We take off. And after coming back from sailing, bank is empty. It's time to get back to work, figure out what's next. And this is where Sitecore comes into the picture.
Okay.
I called a friend up and I said, what's going on with the businesses? And he said, my son started a business in Denmark with 4 of his buddies. And it's some kind of software they built websites with. I didn't know too much about that. This is like late 2003. And I did know his son. He's Michael Seifert, and I knew him since he was 11 years old, and he was, at that time, already tapping on an Apple keyboard. I remember when I saw him as a kid.
So this is the founder of Sitecore?
He is the founder of Sitecore now, right? There are 5 of them. 6, soon after that was 6 of them. So I went to Denmark, and we talked through it, and try to find a way to get the business off the ground. And that was, it was super interesting. They had just replaced IBM WebSphere at a big client in Denmark. And I thought, if such a small company can replace such a big brand, they must really have something. So we found a way to work out a distributor agreement, because the company didn't have any kind of VC funding, really. It was completely bootstrapped. So I picked up the phone, started calling and see if there was someone who could want to get some software to build a website. And that was really the beginning. And actually the internet was so bad in 2000, it was easier using the phone book, Yellow Pages. So I ordered the Yellow Pages from all over the country to find out agencies they were the ones who were building websites.
So Sitecore was wasn't a global business at that stage, just a European business. So you took that employee number one, you took that back to the US?
Yes, it was in Denmark. Most of the customers were in Denmark. And at that time, Sitecore already made the decision to start out in only the English-speaking countries. Obviously, keep their website was all in English. The languages throughout the company was always just English. And so the US market was, of course, the biggest, and they wanted to get going on that. And the next market became the UK, and the one after that was Australia. So it sort of stayed with all the English-speaking countries to start out with. So here, it was, I had a business partner who was taking care of all the accounting and the legal stuff. And I had one technical person to help me to be the sales engineer. And away we went. And it was picking up the phone, first started calling on, everybody needed a new website. But it was just really hard to get through to those big companies with some Danish guy calling up and said, well, you're buying some software. And by the way, Microsoft had something called SharePoint they thought they could build websites with at the time. And thinking I couldn't compete with that. So after a short time, I realized this is going to be a hard sell. That's when I turned to the partners, meaning the agencies. The web was so bad back in the day, I thought anyways, that I had a hard time finding the web agencies. So I ended up just buying yellow pages from the major states and found the agencies there, calling them up. And then the agencies would take a look at software. So in that regard, it was just like, they would take a look and say, this makes sense. And it was the first dynamic-driven website that Sitecore had back in the day. And it was .NET based. And so anybody who had a .NET development was interested enough that they could take a look at it. And then that helped us get into the customer.
So some of those partners, of course, are some of the partners that we have today, right?
They are. I mean, it's the horizontals, Velir, Verndale. There's EPAM. There are different names, some of them. And some of them have acquired Valtech, et cetera. They've been acquired up by, they have acquired other companies. And they're still amazing partners when you think about it. They've been working, back in the day, I mean, some of these were 30 people shops, and I happen to know they're well over several hundred, some of them today. And a lot of them spent a lot of time on Sitecore, if not all of it.
So you had that, from when you described your history there, quite entrepreneurial in nature by the sounds of it, and, starting new ventures in different countries. So, here you are, you're in North America, you've found those initial partners, but it takes some inspiration to get people on board in the company, and it, and how your, leadership perhaps, forms the basis of which, Sitecore US becomes. Can you talk a little bit about those early days and how those...
You'll appreciate this because all the first salespeople, actually including myself for that matter, we were commission-based, and it's 100% commission. Yeah. It was a draw against commission.
Oh, wow.
And that was, it sort of set the mentality of the kind of person that I wanted to have in the company to begin with. And we did that for the first 3-4 years, just a draw against commission, and they got a percentage of the sales. And it worked amazingly. And we also hired, the people we had hired in the early days of sales were unique in that they worked with the partners and sold side by side with the partners. And it was this one salesperson with that one partner, and they were just really good at pitching together. And that worked really well. That was one of the things I thought we did well. As time went on and it became bigger, of course, these larger companies, they know what they're buying, and you can start talking to them directly, like we do a lot today, right? Yeah. But in the early days, it was definitely with and side by side with the partners.
So we heard from Kim, of course, earlier, and she talked a lot about, people. And back in those, what did you look for, in the people that you were hiring as you're, organically growing so fast as a business? Was there particular traits you looked for and things that, from a leadership style that was really important to you?
The software business is amazing. It really has one asset that we have to be really good at managing, and that's the people. Think about the lumber business that I had to deal with earlier. You've got to cut down the trees. You've got to build roads to bring them into the sawmill. You're going to cut them up. You're going to dry the wood. The roof leaks. The market is going down. Think about all these different variables. And we also had the people there. In software, to me, it was finding the smartest person for the job day in and day out that I could afford. And that said, a I was always part of the interviewing process. Of course, in the early days, I interviewed everybody from the start. But until the company had about 200 people, I was the last person in line for the interview, and I was always just looking for, can this person fit into the culture of the company? Smart people, of course, the challenge is they can be a little bit hard working together at times, and that's where management really comes in. And so fitting into the culture, making sure everybody, could work together as a team, set everything up so that we're not competing with each other than healthy competitions. I was really proud of our teams, and I still am today. I mean, I see how teams, I go to the symposiums and go to the partner meetings, and I'm super impressed with how we can continue to do that.
Yeah. No, I saw you not long ago when we did the DX event in Boston, of course, and it's still some employees there, and obviously the partners that were engaged at the time, and I think they look back on those early days of the organisation very fondly, just in terms of how the sort of inspiration that you led, as a company. But we're a very different company today, right? So even we don't just sell CMS. We've brought in and acquired, and you're of course part of our board. So you're still very much in the decision-making process and backing the leadership to acquire those companies. But when you think about how the company's evolved, what is it really that kind of helped you make those decisions and think they're the right things for Sitecore as we evolve as an organisation?
I'm very impressed with how the company has been able to manage that, and at the time that the company decided to do that, it was, I think, absolutely the right time. Offering multiple products. We have a good customer base, so if we can sell them more products, of course, the more the better. And that said, with the multiple products, the modern cloud, how we've evolved into that. I mean, and you can see in the market today, without a doubt, in my mind, we are the best. And I still believe it's our opportunity. We can win this one.
Yeah,
I'm very convinced. It looks so good and so promising with where we're at.
So as we think about kind of that next evolution for us as we continue to try and grow and evolve and innovate, you're still very active on the Sitecore board. What kind of keeps you wanting to be engaged at a board level and engaged with the ELT as you are, and here today talking to the employees again?
At some level, it's still my baby. I mean, I'm passionate about the company. I love technology. That's sort of my hobby, reading up on all the new technology, all the new stuff that comes out, and try to stay on top of it and understand it. At the same time, I think Sitecore is really doing the right things at the right time. This is where we're at today.
So you were probably growing quite rapidly back then in those early days. I mean, how was it, or how did the company kind of evolve so quickly?
Yeah, it was amazing though. It was a lot of hiring. It was like super busy. It was super exciting. When we were, as we are today, we were the best in the market. It was fun. We actually grew as distributors. Grew the business in North America to about 35 million, and it was about the 35 million in the rest of the world as well, about 50-50. And that was at a time when we combined the company into one company, because the distributorships, of course, were privately owned by myself and my business partners. And that's the first time we got private equity involved in the company, and they helped with the financing to buy us out, only for us to buy back in, and we now became part of employee. That was the first time I really became an employee of the company. And Michael and I had a lot of conversations around that, and we decided to just continue to run the business just like it was run in the past, and we just continue to have success with that.
So let me ask you let me try and make some fun questions for you. So what's your favourite memory of Sitecore?
I've been on some amazing sales calls with the sales group. One of the fun ones would have to be in Florida one time, because it was sort of a lesson in that little story too. And that I was there with some salespeople, and we were pitching a big client. Actually, it was towards the end we were really working on getting a signature from this big client. And a salesperson gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning. He's on the way to the gym. As he's crossing the street, he runs out and he almost gets hit. He jumps for his life, according to what he told me anyways. And he comes into the gym and starts working out, and he recognizes the person that walks into the gym right after him was actually the person who almost hit him. And he thinks, should I dig into this guy? But he came right up and he gave an excuse and said, I'm really sorry, I didn't see you. He said, no, I'm not going to say anything. I said, okay, let it go. And anyway, so he came back. And time to go to the sales pitch. We were in Florida, it's hot, but wearing our jackets. And he picks up the jacket, and it still has the clip on it from the store, that I think I paid him enough he didn't have to steal it, I'm quite sure. But it was one of those that, if you break it, it sprays paint all over it stuff. So we decided, okay, we'll go on a sales call and we'll just carry the jackets over the sleeve, and we come in and go to the sales call, and everybody else in the office had their jackets on. We're coming in with it on the sleeve. It kind of looks a little odd, but we've got to keep it that way. And sit down, and we're waiting for the boss to show up. And who's the boss showing up? The very person who almost ran him over. And he just kind of went like this and come up here and said, where do we need to sign? So that
Perfect.
was one of the good ones.
There, right?
Well, there are many good stories like that.
So let's talk about people. So favorite people, person, and why?
I have the luxury of saying there are a lot. And a number of them are still with us. Some of them actually left and come back, I've noticed, So I have a hard time putting a finger on one. But one thing I can say about my favorite people, they're definite company people. They are helping spread the good culture. They will stay informed on where the company is at and what they're doing. They will reach out to me out of the blue. Some of them still do today. And that, to me, is the favorite people and the kind of people that I always think we should be looking for.
Yeah. No, I mean, we know, many of them are, many of those that are still working here, still have very fond memories of those times. But for you then, what would be the most proud moment, or one of the most proud moments?
Again, there's a lot of those. I think closing the first $1 million deal, that was, and it took a long time too. It was Comcast. Yeah. And I remembered early on that someone said that you're never going to be able to sell this software for $1 million. Of course, now we do multiple of them, and we also did that during my tenure. But getting that across the line, and I believe it was one of those that came in the very last day of the month. It was actually the last day of the year, the more I think about it. It was June 30th, I think.
We all
something
know those dates.
We know something about that. Yeah. It was one of those. So it was a good time to celebrate after that one.
They're big moments in the company's history, those type of things, right? So, getting people to believe that they can go through those types of moments and, can sell big and what we have is valuable to customers. So they're good moments. What about something that you like the least?
That's easy, right? When you're a manager, and at times you have to let people go. That's always a missable thing. And by the way, if you're a manager here and enjoy that, you shouldn't be here. That's how I look at that.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. What about favorite place? Not necessarily to do with the site call. You sound like you're well traveled.
I am. Probably one of my. I think Mount Everest Base Camp would have to be one of my. It was really hard to get there back in the day when I did that. I still enjoy my backpacking. It's still one of my favorite hobbies.
Best site call party?
That's also a hard one, right? Because we used to do some big trips. I would say some of the after parties at the symposiums have been super fun. When we took the groups to Mexico and other places in the very early days of the company, when that was possible, there were amazing parties too.
Yeah, I think their partners still try and relive those, right? I think the couple came up in the DX Boston recently, and certainly the one in London was good.
Yeah. Those parties are always really fun, and they've got good music, and I've been known to be on the dance floor from time to time.
That's good to know. So, what about something you'd have done differently?
Actually, that's an easy answer for me. Because we sold with the partners, we also left the software with the partners to go and implement it for the customers. And of course, because we're growing so fast, had so much going on, it was hard for them also to keep up and train enough developers. So some of the jobs were probably done a little bit too fast. Hindsight, I would have probably done some sort of professional services where we worked side by side with the partners, but we were also able to add, like we do today, offer professional services that we can work with the partners to make sure that partners and customers have success. We didn't do that till later in the years, and I wish I would have done it earlier.
So what about your hopes for the future?
Hopes for the future is we're going to win this space. That is my hope. And I think the way things are evolving and the way we're getting into the modern cloud. With the products we have, I think we have an amazing opportunity with our existing customer base, and you know better than me about the new logos we bring on board.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That tells us that we're on the right track.
And what about you? You've achieved a lot with Sitecore and other businesses you talked about, and I know you've recently been traveling in Europe, but what's next for you?
I love technology, and I love the technology businesses. I get involved with various kinds, and it's just amazing to see how technology continues to evolve into areas where we don't even expect, and sometimes it's a little bit like it comes out of the blue with what it can do and how it can help us, and sometimes maybe not help us in good ways, as we've seen recently with generative AI. But all the good things it can do, all the problems it can solve, it's kind of my hobby, reading about that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it.
Well, look, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. I think, it was important, I think, for us to understand, Sitecore is and always has been a very innovative organization. It's a great entrepreneurial spirit, I think, that you led, through those early years. And I think some of that is still, very much felt throughout the organization with the founders also. So, look, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you today, and I hope our audience of employees have really enjoyed it too. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate the time.
Thanks.